those who know me know that I do like to start things on time, and we're like 2 minutes in. But I do like to give grace. I know we have some people coming from other campuses. Welcome, other campuses. Hello. We love to have our sister colleagues in the house with us. So today is really exciting. We have been anxiously awaiting this opportunity to provide this platform to be able to learn more about this subject that popped up on my email one day, and I almost blew it off. I was like, I don't know what that is. And then I sent it over. We have the Research and Innovation Center, and I sent it over to Isabel, and she almost blew it off. And then 24 hours later, she was like, oh no, wait a minute. This is a thing, a big thing. So we decided to utilize the platform that we have in the Research and Innovation Center to research what this was. And before that, within that 24 hours, it was all over the place. I was getting emails from Montgomery with Lori Hughes was on top of it. And so she was like, I don't know what this is. Y'all find some resources. Here's what I found. Tell me what it is. So we found other people on campus. There were faculty that knew of it, but no one was really talking about it yet. And so thankfully, I found those faculty members that were willing to share what they know. And so first, I want to give some thank yous to, she's not in here, but Dr. Nutt and Dr. Thomas, they give us the flexibility and the creativity to be able to do things like this, to share information, and I thank them for trusting us. This is all possible too. Our Title III Strengthening Institutions program is what will be funding a lot of our initiatives that has to do with strengthening our campus. And so the Research and Innovation Center is what is benefiting from that grant. I want to thank Isabel Chen. She is leading the Research and Innovation Center as a Coordinator 3, and she's doing a fantastic job, and I probably don't tell her that enough, but she really is amazing. She really is amazing. And I want to thank Van, actually, because he stays in my inbox, because he wants me to know it all. He was like, I'm going to share everything I have, and I want you to share it with everyone that you can. And so I appreciate him a lot. So before I get going, I want to share with you an opportunity. I don't know if y'all get the emails from League for Innovation, but League for Innovation is on top of this too. They're actually going to be offering they're going to be partnering with PACBAC, and they're going to do a ChatGPT and AI's effect on community colleges. So the Backpack CEO, Kelsey Behringer, and Maricopa Community College District Director, Steve Crawford, to discuss how colleges are holistically utilizing instructional AI to improve student learning outcomes. And so I signed up for it, actually. So what I'm thinking about is in our 253, we have like 5 screens in that room, and it's very comfortable seating. I'm thinking about a little lunch and learn. I could buy some lunch. We show the screen. People that want to come in 253, come and go. Is from 12 to 1 on March the 2nd. So you can either go straight to League of Innovation website and register for that if you just want to look at it in your office. If you're on this campus, come to 253 and share in conversation with those that are there. So without further, I'm going to introduce the moderator, who is going to allow everyone else to introduce themselves. But Van Piercy, he is a faculty member and chair of English here at LSC-Tomball. He's been teaching English for 30 years, so I think he knows a little something about this. Current interests include labor-based grading contracts and specification grading, and of course, currently large language model AIs and their effects on education and society. So, Van, take it away.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming. Welcome, especially if you're not part of the Tomball crew. Really grateful to have you here. Is Lori here? Lori Hughes? Hey, Lori. Lori invited me to our Montgomery working group, and I really appreciated this chance, maybe kind of return the favor a little. So, all right. Just a ground rule that we're just exploring and sharing today, right? It's not a debate. There's no hardened positions on this stuff. I mean, it just it took Chatbot GPT 2 months to hit 100 million users, and it took Instagram 2 years to do that. So we can give ourselves a little space to try to figure it out. Okay, so And also, I just wanted to mention each discipline is going to have its own particulars in how to deal with this. And we've got a very English and composition bias up here, but ideally we'd have a science person, and we'd have one or two at least library people up here, information literacy folks, to discuss this with us. So bear that all in mind. Also, the math folks, I see out there. And I know you guys have been dealing with, well, like Wolfram Alpha, right? Stuff like that, AI, that will do the steps for students. So, and then problems with proctoring, right, at an administrative level. So anyway, on to introductions. Kayla, would you tell us a little bit about yourself? And yeah. Okay.
We're supposed to. Sure. Hi. I don't know if it's working. My name's Kayla Almaguer. I am currently a PhD student at Texas Women's. I also teach here at Tomball. I really want to bring innovation in a way that students can benefit from the technology that we have now. I think AI is definitely a special breed. So when we say technology, I want to make sure that we understand that artificial intelligence is a subcategory of that. It is not all of technology. And so I think a big part of my experience here at Tomball has been making sure that the context matters. And so I look forward to continuing to use not just ChatGPT, but I have quite a few different tools that are coming up next month. If anyone wants to attend, you're more than welcome. It is open, and it's in March 23rd. So yeah, AI in general has just very much interested me, and I'm excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Kyle Solak. I am a faculty lead here at Tomball in English. And, I'm just beginning the AI GPT journey like so many people. I did a sabbatical on primarily concerning AR and VR in the classroom. And it got me more involved in notions of innovative technology in the classroom and what sort of points of no return we've reached, and trying to anticipate where the teaching field is going to be going moving forward, and what constitutes existential dilemmas for the college and university moving forward, and what we can do to, in Kayla's words, try to better understand the context for innovative technologies, and certainly AI is, one, if not the primary concern right now, or benefit, right, depending on what that context is. And so, I think that's what I'm most interested in moving forward in the discussion is where to embrace and where to restrict, and making sure that we have the parameters in place to maximize its utility, while simultaneously, maybe protecting, students from the possibility of misuse, and not getting the tool set that we would like them to have. Simultaneously making sure that they're digitally literate when they leave our classrooms, and they're able to use this technology in their own pursuits moving forward. So. This is an important discussion, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
My name is Ginger Frey. I'm Associate Professor of English and Faculty Senate President here at Tomball. And I'm entering this conversation. First, I had a very severe existential crisis when this all went down, and spent time in most of these people's offices going, is higher education doomed? And then once I didn't sleep for a couple of nights and pulled myself together, I realized that I've embraced technology my entire over 20-year career as an English instructor at different levels, and I'm usually one of the first ones to jump on board and figure out how to use a new software or a tool for students. And why was I having this pull at my heart that higher ed is doomed? What are we going to do? Is critical thought completely gone? And actually having conversations with my colleagues have helped to ease that. And my wonderful colleague, Kentry, gave me the robot proof book. And as you can see, I've taken it pretty seriously and really started to understand that the greatest teacher for humans is experience. So if we are going to experience this AI, which we know our students are, then we've got to figure out what that looks like in the scope of higher ed. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I have not fully embraced this. I am very concerned about, and fellow Englisher, you don't have to be English to understand this, English instructor to understand this. The light going off in your students' eyes when they get it is something you cannot bottle, and most people who are not in our profession do not understand, right? So when you have a student who has struggled with writing for, most of their education, and they walk into your freshman composition class and you see that light go off when they've written something well by themselves, and the esteem they get from that, and the self-efficacy, and that, for me, that was where my worry was hitting, was will that go away? Because they will have a tool that will do that for them, and they won't be able to have that a boy or that a girl or that a they of this is something I created and I can do this. And if I can create a sentence, a paragraph, a well-crafted email, notes in my chart for nursing, if that's your field, whatever it may be, I just didn't want to lose that. So I have really, really thought about this and also struggled with it. So just know that I'm not a Luddite. I don't completely condemn it at all. I'm just here to have a conversation and understand more. Am I done?
Great. Okay, so I've got a list of questions. I'm going to start with Kayla because she was in Chicago. She was in Chicago recently at the College Composition and Communication Conference, National Conference, and all the people in our field talking about this, right? And a variety of other things, but talking about this. I saw that there was a late put together workshop on a Saturday on ChatGPT. So I was eager to ask Kayla, what was the vibe there at that conference? And then I think she turned around and went to a dual credit conference after that. So my 59-year-old bones are like already going, okay. So then she's going to tell us a little bit about the contrasts she saw at both places. So, Kayla? Oh.
Yes, it was very cold in Chicago. I had a wonderful time, though. I really did get to see a vast majority of the AI workshops. And there was not a lot. So I was under the assumption there was not a lot because this is relatively new. And I feel like everyone is waiting to hear more. They, as academics, want to make sure that it's vetted. And this is one of the things that who is going to vet aside from us, right? We have to vet. And so the vast majority, was very much hesitant to talk about it. They were even more hesitant to call it beneficial. I think a lot of them were waiting kind of for the other shoe to drop, and we are holding the shoe, and we're clutching that. So it's difficult to say the minority was, pro ChatGPT, because I don't think that should be the statement. If you're pro or con, I don't think that that's correct. I think the binary thinking is going to really shoot us in the foot. Because if we approach this from the binary, then all students are going to know is it's bad or it's good. And that is not the case. It is potentially useful, it is potentially harmful, but so is cough medicine. And if you don't know about it, then you're going to have that cough for your entire life and it turns into bronchitis. So I feel as though the C's was much more open to even the discussion of it versus the dual credit conference. In public school, so my daughter goes to a public school that I taught at, a high school, And I thought it was hilarious because the dual credit instructors were almost mimicking the department chair that I used to work for today. She was saying how it doesn't affect her right now, so she's not going to worry about it. She has too many things on her plate. She doesn't want to worry about it. My daughter has been using ChatGPT since I started using ChatGPT in the middle of December. And so I wanted to tell her, it absolutely is affecting you. I didn't want to scare her, though, because she does have a lot on her plate. And she is also one of the other people who are waiting for someone else to vet it. And so if not our public school teachers who are extremely, not even hesitant, y'all, they are not talking about it. If they are with full plates, I know our plates are also full, but who will take it? Who will take that on then? Somebody has to have another plate, or maybe a little side dish, a butter bowl, I don't know. But I have really seen the budding of binary thinking, and I wanna nip it in the bud, because it's not at all good and it's not at all bad. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So as I was saying, I've got some questions. I'm going to go around our little panel here, and then we have questions from the audience, and we have questions I asked ChatGPT would be good to ask a group like this, and it gave some pretty good questions. We could guess, right? Which one is a ChatGPT question? I'll let you know, right? If it's a ChatGPT question. And then I want to open it to the floor after we've excessively primed the pump, and see what questions you have, or what thoughts have been sparked in your minds for the panel. Okay. So I'll start with Ginger. Is that okay? All right. So so someone from the FormStack survey asked, what is in place to help me detect text created by ChatGPT?
Well, the only one that I have used is the GPT-0, which I did sign up and get an account for that one. And I will share my experience. I received a discussion board, since we do not have the capability to use an originality checker in our discussion board. Not that it even catch, ChatGPT. That's been an issue for a while as far as originality is concerned. So I got a post in the discussion board for one of my courses, and it was very mechanical looking, like it had been copied from someplace. So I thought, I'll put it into the ChatGPT-0. No, it's not ChatGPT according to this. It was just really not great writing. So I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, so the first time I think I'm detecting it as a human, I may not have been. And more than likely, as I've seen, with the discussion board posts, it's just human error and not using AI writing. So I have not explored all of the options. I do try to really watch, and I think that one of the ways that we can check, and I don't know if this is one of the other questions, but one of the things we're going to have to do is be very creative. And I've talked to other colleagues in other disciplines, and when creating their prompts, it's more of a narrative-based prompt rather than something that could be regurgitated from Wikipedia. So one of these, and I think this is a great one, one of my colleagues, Sandra Harvey over at Sci-Fair, she said one of the prompts that she started giving is, imagine yourself as a soldier in the Civil War. How would you navigate this battle? And so that way they're having to recall information about a specific battle. They're having to put themselves directly into the actual role of that soldier and talk about the experience, not only that, with that, but also the political experience of what's going on. So I thought that is what's going to really help us detect, is us switching our thinking as instructors, which we do because we're lifelong learners, into creating stronger prompts or experiences. So.
Okay, great. Kyle, same question. What's in place to help instructors detect bot-created prose?
Right. You mentioned GPT-0. We've talked about copy leaks. I think as far as it affects us, though, it's going to be about Turnitin, right? I mean, that's what our D2L system currently uses to detect academic dishonesty, right? And so if we're going to stay with them as our sort of oversight program, we're going to have to, I think, really be on top of what Turnitin is doing to be able to identify AI-produced writing, because as Ginger said, you can look for characteristics, but it's not surefire. And so I think we're gonna have to evaluate how good Turnitin's ongoing programs are, and whether they're keeping up in the digital arms race, I guess, if you want to think of it like that. And what kinds of and speaking of that contextuality, what about the controls, right? I mean, how user-friendly will they be from assignment to assignment? And so there's just a lot to think about in terms of.
When you say controls from assignment to assignment, what do you? Maybe I'm the only one in the room who doesn't know what you're talking about.
I guess I'm talking about at this point, and this also goes to what Kayla was just saying. Who's going to be making the decisions about what is going to be allowable, right, for a particular assignment? I mean, do we want Austin or system to be doing this for us?
Okay.
Or if we want to keep this on a faculty level, we're going to want to be able to be very specific with the amount of AI-produced writing that we're going to allow.
You mean like policy for appeals? Like what would?
I just mean as in terms of, you have particulars of your prompt right now that you have X number of assignments. I mean, or X number of sources, Y number of words. You must integrate, or you must annotate in a certain way, or whatever it might be, and that, hey, I'm able to manipulate the oversight controls in such a way that this is effective for the parameters of that assignment. I've looked. Turnitin is starting to comment on this, but they're just kind of as you were suggesting, the possibility of pushing this from a forthcoming theoretical to something that's actualized is occurring in real time, as you said. And so how good of a program that's going to be for detecting academic dishonesty in fall 23 is going to be important for English professors at Tomball or Lone Star System in general right now, with our relationship to D2L as our LMS.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, Kayla. I know I had some pros from a discussion post, and it was very monotonous, not a lot of perplexity or burstiness, right? And I sent it, that's the term, right? So I sent it to Kayla. I said, what do you think about this? Does this look, bot produced? And she sent me back, I think it was from CopyLeaks, wasn't it? All right, so.
It was very obvious that was, and to be fair, I use ChatGPT every day. And so I know ChatGPT formatting, and I have taught my ChatGPT to write like me. But I have fed it multiple writing samples over time, and so it has come to learn how to generate. You must stay in the same thread. That thread is going to be themed. And so, again, we're talking about critically thinking, teaching students to still critically think, but in such a way that it produces the results that they want, right? And so for me, that's innovation. Now, for the composition portion of it, I think this is really important, because what I was getting from my colleagues is that we really want to satisfy that need to make sure that the student is working towards becoming more enlightened. And a big thing for me is the assessment looks more like a reflection. It looks more like what was gained, what was not gained, what do I still need to improve upon. There is a heavy peer-to-peer interaction in my class where you are building community through humility. And so we are all aware that we are terrible writers the first 50 times around. But when we have the opportunity to build upon those pieces, a lot of times I think the assessment is here. What are we assessing? What is the goal? Is the goal for the student to write a perfect paragraph, as ChatGPT can do? Or is the goal to have the student explain to another person why this paragraph is organized, whereas this one is not? because there is a difference in skill and there's a difference in rigor. And I feel that with lots of time and lots of practice, we can, just like any other technology, build this one into a much more useful platform than regurgitation and copying and pasting, because we've already had that. That's plagiarism. And I want my students to be like, that's kind of played out. I would actually like to learn. And so that's the goal for, I think, any technology, is just for it to be an aid.
Right. Okay. What do I do with the mic? Okay.
Our next question. Go back to Ginger here. What are current examples of how faculty are using ChatGPT? I can't reach that far.
Well, I wouldn't know. I am not using it. My dear friend Kayla, she said, "Oh, you could put your faculty senate president's report in that, and I can show you in 2 seconds how to make it great." And I said, no, and backed out of her office. So I'm not embracing it yet for my own writing. And the fear is, and I'll just give you a little bit about my background. I did not become a strong writer until I was a writing teacher, right? So yes, you look back at your college essays, and but I went back after I was teaching and got my master's, and that's what I explained to my students. It's experience. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, 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 right? So my concern is that I don't, and I could be wrong about this, but my concern is that I will not keep that skill that I have honed over these many, many years, and I don't want to lose it. So, and that may be an illogical fear with the software. I don't know, but I don't know if I could talk on this point. So, who's next?
I guess what I would say as English faculty is we're going to have to be far more conscious of the prompts that we assign. The wiggle room or kind of non-nuanced language has always been a problem, I guess, in our prompts. But particularly with the advent of this technology, we need to make sure. I mean, you gave the example of the Civil War experience, but prompts that require verifiable sources and quotations, prompts that come directly from the preceding class discussion, prompts that embrace recent developments, current events, nuanced relationships between ideas from the coursework, right? I mean, you're going to have to be just more prescriptive in terms of what we require of each assignment. And it's going to force me, like you were suggesting, to reassess a lot of the work and not be just sort of resting a little bit easier on prompts that I've had from previous semesters, right? It's gonna mandate more, just current upkeep with the demands of the class.
I guess we know where I stand now. Okay, so I hear a lot of work on the teacher side. I hear a lot of work on the instructor side. And this always concerns me because we have enough work. We have too much work, some might say. And so if there was anything that I could use in my day-to-day that would make it a little bit easier on myself or on my colleagues, right, it would be, how do I do things more efficiently without losing the skill and the knowledge that I've built prior to having that efficiency? And so a huge goal for me is this particular AI, because there are others, but this particular AI has allowed me to create an entirely new curriculum within 3 hours. 3 hours. It took me 2 years when I was a dual credit instructor to build the curriculum that I am now able to create with ChatGPT. And this has been happening more and more, where we see huge time frames shortened into fractions because ChatGPT can do things more efficiently. Now, ChatGPT is not an all-knowing, omniscient God. It's just a top layer that is above a data set, and you're just talking to the data set, and ChatGPT is organizing it for you. Now, that data set is not guaranteed to be accurate. It's actually pretty fun when it's not accurate, because it's ridiculous. But it definitely dehumanizes this, and it shows it to be just as the electric light bulb or the telephone. It's just another machine. And the way that I think it's presented to students is the most important thing that we as faculty can do. Because if we teach them that it's this big bad wolf that they should be completely, scared of, to, plagiarize with, things like that, I think it's kind of that reverse psychology. It's not going to work. The students are going to be more prone to it. And if you don't talk about it at all, then other students are going to talk about it as a let's do this copy paste, rather than let's try to write our own prompt so that ChatGPT can create another prompt, and let's see how your prompt is different from that prompt, and let's see which one we like the most. Let's see how we can cut this paper up. Let's see how we can, we're learning together, we're working, and the brain is still in use. And so I invited two of my students, they're in the back, my lovely students. They have helped me over the winter break with my ChatGPT tutorials. My daughter helped me. We have learned together, and it has been beautiful. It has been one of the very few moments, aside from the pandemic, positive moments, that I have been able to learn right alongside with them. And I have really gained so much knowledge because they have been there to help me with, this is working and this is not working. This is what a student who wants to cheat is going to do, and this is what a student who doesn't want to cheat wants to do. And it's just so useful to have the conversation. And I don't know, Mr. Rogers says if it's mentionable, it's manageable. But if we're not mentioning it, we're not going to be able to manage it. And on our side of it, on the faculty side, it's like a parent that has all of that pressure and how do I do this for my child? How do I communicate this with my child? Sit down and talk about it with them. Ask them what they want to know about it and demystify it. Really take that power back. Speaking of, I'm going to step to the side. My daughter has to get home from school, so I thought we were going to take a break, and Van said we're not. So
You can take a break. Okay. It's going to slide. Well, I used it in my class. I had it write an essay. It was a relatively complicated prompt, and I presented it to my students. I didn't tell them right away what it was from. It was just an essay, and critique it. And their response was that it lacked examples and that it was kind of summary, And we've all, if you've worked with ChatGPT at all, it's pretty drony and pretty even and monotonous in its level of giving you information. One of its tells, I guess. But I also had it write up some quiz questions over MLA for me, which I didn't want to do. So let this bot do it, right? And also a study guide for a particular philosopher, right? Like what would be some things that you would read or selections. And it did a pretty good job of that after I coaxed it some. So I thought that was pretty good. There was one other thing about the instructor side and the student side that Kayla was bringing up. And I think on the student side, if it's generative for the student, right, then it's a good thing, right? It's inspiration. If it's just another way, which they've had, it's been, you've been able to buy papers, right, or get a C paper from some crazy site, then it's not so good, right? So kind of use case thing there. Okay, so our next question, we may have to skip Kayla for this one, but I'm sure she'll fill the gap. All right, so this one was pretty general. It was the potential impact of ChatGPT on social media.
I'm no expert in this, but I think this has been used for social media. I mean, this is one of the reasons these AI writers came about. Are you all aware of that? That the AI writers were first introduced because content creators wanted to create copy for social media, which would draw users in. So then you have your algorithms, right? And then also your advertising. So this actually came about. AI was first used as this. We do have a colleague whose son works for Google, so he knew right away that Bard was coming out. I believe it's Google that's introducing Bard. I think I'm right on that.
Yep.
And he actually is a content creator for companies. So this was what it was used for, and then it's just morphed from there. So I think it's always been in the social media plane. This is not new to them, because I remember hearing about it about a year ago, that this was used as a tool to create content.
Okay. Again, news sites too. Okay.
I think this is a good example of what some of our largest concerns, right? And I think that it helps to throw it into perspective, right? And one thing I mean, Kayla's so good, and Ginger is as well now as she learns more and more about potential benefits and how best to hone beneficial use. But it helps, I think, to throw it into that relief with the worst case scenario, right? And so it's not difficult to think of like, oh, that's very potentially problematic if we have mass, social media bombings by bots continually, right? And what that does to our ability to value media, critically analyze quality, quote unquote, news, and get reliable information. And so, being able to detect that, right? I mean, talking about skill sets we're going to have to teach in our class, right? And using this tool and more knowledge of this tool as what critical appraisal of our society looks like, right? I mean, it seems to me like this is going to be something that hopefully I can use GPT to help me create the assignments, but analysis of social media feeds for problematic AI utility, right? I mean, that's going to be something that I think some of my Ret Comp work is going to have to deal with now. And so kind of it's just a good example of sort of the shift in focus, and what being a critical thinker and someone who is able to assess the information that they're receiving. We hope that's what they're leaving our classes with, that this is going to become a core component of that.
It's sort of like, I'm sorry, sort of like media literacy, and critical literacy. Okay.
Right, it's the next iteration.
So I wrote down a word in capitals, and it's skepticism. So I think one of the biggest things that we teach as English instructors, as CompRet specific instructors, is to be skeptical, to go and search out other ways of thinking, and really inquiry-based types of approaches. And I think with social media, it's the same concept. Is there are many students who fully aware social media is not real. For the majority of them, right, social media is a way to communicate. And I think with any AI, they are going to run into things that they are not currently aware of, such as the pictures that are generated. When you send in your own photo, they now have rights to your photo. And so when they click that little agreement box, which they do so very, very quickly, now their facial recognition is there. Now, of course, it's used with Clear as well, but you have children, 12, 13-year-old, maybe younger, who are submitting things to this AI and not understanding that now their face is owned by someone else. And it's really significant for me to be in a position that I can make sure they have that information. I can make sure that, yeah, you can send in that picture, absolutely, but you need to be very aware that you are now putting it into the hands of someone else. And if you happen to include your younger sister or your cousin, your loved one, then their picture is also owned by someone else. And I think that that is just part of making them more of a critical thinker, right? Who's going to have access to this? And so the inquiry comes in. They start asking themselves questions, and I just want them to have the information that they need to make an informed answer. That's it. But yeah, that's all I got there.
Okay. No, I was thinking like digital literacy and digital privacy as a big deal. I heard somebody had used OpenAI's privacy statement, and they put it up on the screen for the students, and using Hypothesis for the social annotation, they had the students annotate the privacy statement. Might have been the first time some of them read a privacy statement, right? I mean, but also just seeing the rights that are being negotiated on your behalf by a company that has very little interest in your interest, right? Also, I remember someone raised ethical concerns about, like if an instructor wanted to use OpenAI, the chatbot in class, and have students pop up your laptop and you know, let's query, let's prompt engineer here, right? But the ethical problem would be, how are these students wanting to give away their privacy rights to this company, right? And you know, that's a pickle, right? And then at that point, it's like, well, okay, well, I've given up mine. We'll just use mine up on the overhead, right? And it's just me hanging out there, not you guys, right? So anyway, it's kind of some interesting stuff with the privacy. See, the next question is, Ginger, you have okay. I'm getting better with the mic tracking where it's going. How might AI affect student research quality and integrity?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest skepticisms, right, is the plagiarism and using it as a plagiarism tool rather than a learning tool. And I know that's two binaries there, but I guess that's why I'm willing to learn a little bit more about it, you know, after working through this, because I'd like to see what the middle ground looks like. Of course, with research, you know, I have to put myself in the shoes of the student and think back to, you know, what a terrible freshman in college I was, and how I might be using the AI writer, more than likely, to find research for my research essays, because I still remember spending spring break in the Blinn Library writing a research essay over Pavarotti. And what was I going to, all the sources I had with the card catalog, I mean, it was a whole thing. And I still made a C. I spent my whole spring break. So I can see, you know, the temptation, definitely. And also, it's, like Kayla said, it's data mining. I mean, that is what this is. So it's at the top looking down, so you don't really know what you're going to get, right? You don't know what you're going to get and how to cite that. And I'm still a little confused about that, because I know MLA gives us a way to cite those chatbots, but is it the idea? Is it the sentence? Is it, you know, if it's a paragraph, then I'm kind of, if I plagiarize, you know, I don't know. So I can only imagine how the students feel as far as the research aspect of this is.
Right. No, we need guidance on that, I think, from MLA, from our librarians. The MLA citation that Monash University provided was from 2019.
I know.
You know, cite the company, you know, or the programmer. Well, it's a whole team of people at OpenAI.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you do.
This is what most of my colleagues are concerned about, right? Is the worst case scenario, I have a paper due in 20 minutes. I'm going to feed this into GPT.
The research quality and integrity question.
Correct. Okay. Right. And how this can be both overseen and how we can make sure that our students are still becoming quality skeptics and are able to articulate that skepticism, in a convincing manner. And I think, then this is again, it just depends on what the professor and the student want to get out of that particular exercise. But making sure that that's not lost, and that there is significant oversight, and with the attendant existential dilemma of the profession, these are the primary concerns that I hear from the rest of the department. And so it goes back to what you were saying a minute ago about and I know I do want to hear more particulars about this, Caleb, but what professional development is going to look like, for faculty, and how suddenly, it may require a new kind of professional development that integrates faculty and students simultaneously.
Hello.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
So I'm just going to be honest with everyone. If a student waits until the night before, they will cheat using something else. It doesn't have to be ChatGPT. It could be Google, which is usually what they use. And so I think I say this out of much love and compassion for my fellow colleagues and my fellow parents, because it is a letting go of control, the need for control. And it is scary. It's very scary. But we have to trust our students to do what they feel is best. And holding information from them is not going to be how to do that. I think that if they are using ChatGPT for research and integrity, they're already that D or F student. They're already not getting it, because ChatGPT is not used for research. It's not. I hate to say it, but those students are gonna do what they're gonna do no matter what, no matter if there is ChatGPT out there or not, and they always have. That being said, it has to be taught that it is not for research, that it is not for accuracy, that it is not going to maintain integrity. The way that we do this is the rhetorical elements in which we teach, how does my audience trust me? Well, it's not by me using false information. And that is going to immediately show them the inherent need for credible sources, because they want to win the argument, the communication style, whatever it is that we're teaching. Rhetoric is going to be at the core of it. Whatever you're composing has those things in it. And so when we think about research and integrity, I think the question is not how do we retain it, but how do we teach something that is not purposeful for this question? We don't. So ChatGPT is not a research AI tool. I do have AI tools that are meant for research, but it is imperative that we are, again, directly instructing students for this is what it's really good at, and this is what it's not really good at. And I think that if we have faith in them, those students who really want to learn, they're going to learn. They are.
Okay. Great. Thank you. I'm getting to not like that microphone. Okay, so it's making me think about the role of scaffolding in course design, so that students don't want to cheat or don't feel the pressure to cheat. They don't have that last minute thing going on. So that's one way to help. And then, of course, is the problem of the assignment. Is it worth doing? Are they invested, right? Are the students invested in the assignment? And one way we try to deal with that is we ask them what they want to write about, right? What do you want to do? Hopefully that solves the problem. But okay, what's our next question here? Oh, I liked this question. How might this be used as a tool to help students write more clearly or create better papers? For Ginger.
As bland as a completely ChatGPT produced answer can be, it will be grammatically correct, right? It's not going to make overt, syntactical mistakes, right? I mean, it will be quote unquote clean. That's why it was able to a ChatGPT maybe doesn't speak well of Wharton, but a ChatGPT response was able to get a B in a Wharton business class, right?
So much for the Wharton business class.
Right, hopefully our tech writing instructors are more discerning, I guess. But yes, I mean it has that advantage, and again, the main tool that we've been discussing up here is what it is to start for the students to realize what doesn't work, right? And okay, I can produce that discussion prompt using GPT only, but understanding that hey, here's a baseline, but given what I've utilized it for, it's producing a less than optimal answer for these reasons. And that's the kind of literacy that we want to build.
So when I was starting out, I wanted to assess writing in a way in which I could replicate for students. I wanted to give them my process because I realized that a lot of students don't know what we look for as writing instructors. They don't. And so I started using higher order concerns. And just to quickly go through them, is your writing focused? Is it purposeful for an audience, for the intention that you're writing it for? Is there an organization pattern that makes sense, right, for whatever that purpose was? And then is it developed to a point in which the audience would understand what you're trying to do, right? I have put a complete essay into ChatGPT. It was mine, I promise. And it spat back out the higher order concerns. And it told me exactly where I could further develop, where the organization was unclear, where there was room for growth. It was incredible. And I just started to think, if I could do this, if I could provide this for every student, how incredible would that be? Because as an instructor who is very, very subjective in their what is good writing rubric, if I could have a student go and feed that into the ChatGPT module, of course we have privacy concerns, but what huge amounts of growth could take place. And when I ask them to do this, any revision, I'm also asking them to do a cover letter in which they walk me through what they did, step by step. Where are you focusing? Is it your introduction? Is it your body? Is it your conclusion? What kinds of steps did you take? Why did you take those steps? How did they affect your reader? You can't have ChatGPT do that. It's not a person. It's not able to self-reflect. And it will tell you, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'm just a language model. But it's very humble. I want to make sure when we're talking about ChatGPT in particular and using it for writing prompts, that we understand it is extremely limited because the person is going to produce the effectiveness. The user does that, not the ChatGPT model. And so what's really important for me to teach my students is with the tools that are available to them, how can they do for themselves? I do not want them to be dependent on me. I will not be there for them when they transfer to that four-year college in which they don't have a professor who's going to be able to talk one-on-one with them because there's 300 students in there. And so ChatGPT can be that for them. It can be another me, but it needs to be another me in which they know how to use me and ask the right questions to me. Again, there's so much more to learn, and this ChatGPT model is just the first of many that are to come. So I just want to stress that it's not a bad or a good. It's a let's wait and see, and while we can use what we have, let's use it to benefit the students and to make sure that they have what they need so that we can move forward in an informed way.
No, I think that idea that it's just going to get better, right? It's right now it's clunky enough that we can detect it pretty well. If you've got multiple degrees and your student doesn't, you'll probably be able to see what's going on. You can craft better than the student in terms of prompting the thing, So you should be able to understand the output a lot better. I like the thing about the higher order concerns with the writing and how can they do for themselves. Have any of you tried to get your students to use Grammarly or words proofing? I mean, if you go into options in Microsoft Word, there's a whole rafter of things to check off, right? So
Yes, and actually, I always say God made spell check. Let's use it. And surprisingly, those errors do show up quite a bit in the student writing, and it's no different, with Grammarly, having your students, and I do this in class. Okay, go Google that word. Let's find a stronger word to use there, a higher order word to use there, elevated vocabulary. So that's really no different. That's using that as a tool. And I just would like to say something to what Kayla said. And this has helped me to understand it. And Van, I think you sent us this resource, is that the way I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that ChatGPT is a predictor. So it's predicting what you would possibly write next. So like you said, you are teaching it, from what I understand, what's going to come next. So that helped me, if anybody's out there that was struggling, to really understand what it did that. But I appreciate that you brought up that it doesn't possess a human lens at all to look at. And I think that's one of the biggest fears is it going to take the place of humans, as most AI type of tools are coming out? And that's the big question. And it's not just our industry. I mean, it's in the tech industry. Right. It's sciences. I mean, everywhere. So I just wanted to follow up with that.
Okay. Let's see. Well, we've got one more question. Have I gotten everybody? I've kind of lost track of who all. I think we're. Yeah. Let's go with Ginger on this question. Yeah. Well, it's a new one, and it's the last one before I open this up to the audience. And then if you guys slow down, I'll have to go back to my list from ChatGPT. So, how might we talk about this in our syllabus?
Okay. Well, I did include a phrase in there, and I think, did I get it from you? Or was it Laura? Maybe it was Laura. I can't remember, but one of my wonderful colleagues, it was Katie Olson, came up with a great thing, and it just said about, the work must be produced by you. So the originality of the work must be produced by you and
Right.
not by an AI writer. So that's how I addressed it specifically in my syllabi.
Okay.
But I'm not sure we're going to be able to be that categorical moving forward, though, right? I mean, and again, just to look at those extremes, I mean, the difference between the possibilities here in terms of academic dishonesty versus previous iterations, someone else is doing the paper for me, or I'm buying it off the internet or whatever. I mean, you have the possibility of citing this, right? We just talked about it's an outdated MLA citation. I'm sure they're scrambling on how to deal with this and how to continually update it. But I mean, how do we stop the worst case scenario of, well, I have this bland paper. It meets all your requirements, Professor Solak. It's original in a sense that it wasn't copied, and you can put the same query in the GPT twice and get a different paper. So it's an original work, and I've cited that AI generated work as such. But I don't want that, right? While I still want you to be able to use all the benefits of it, right? And how to oversee that middle space is going to be the challenge.
So in first drafts, for me, it's 100. It's 100. There is no value associated with it. The revised draft, whatever you want, you can revise it 3,000 times. And as long as it comes with a cover letter, you're good. Because the cover letter is going to show me from one draft to the next draft. What did you actually do? What was the intention that you had when you made these changes? Was it for the audience or was it for yourself? And when we go through our units, they get better and better and better at determining why they're doing what they're doing. And that is my goal, to make sure that they are intentional,
That's nice.
that they are trying their best to think of the audience and not of themselves. They come in very selfish. They come in writing for their own mind. And if I can get them to break that pattern, that's hard enough. That's the most difficult thing, to bring them out of that idea of it's just me, myself, and I. Because the communication happens when the other party is entered into the conversation. And so a lot of what I hear when I hear, a syllabus disclaimer is, well, the middle ground becomes the significant portion of learning, the process-based portion of learning. And if you put right there where we would normally just have well, here's your paper, I did it, just give me the C or the B. Well, of course, right, it's going to be really difficult to disprove that ChatGPT was the, bearer of that work. However, if you go ahead and tell them, okay, well, this is going to be 10% and this is going to be 10%, but this gray area right here, this middle area, that's actually 30%. And you're going to have to walk me through. And so what that looks like for me is unit reflections, and from each and every section, when you go from the rough draft, we have pre-writing, but rough draft, and then the peer conference in which you're discussing your paper with someone else, because you can't do that with ChatGPT either. And that is another 30% of their grade. Then you go into the next portion, the next step, which is the revision and the cover letter. And so you're reflecting on all of those things, and it has to be done in an intentional way in which someone else responds to you directly, specifically. And that lets them know that even if you're in an online class, you're still going to need to interact with other people. And the moment that you require them to have another party come into play, it gets much harder for them to cheat. They don't want to cheat anymore because they know someone's going to check them. And they have peer reviews that they do performance checks on. So they're going to send a Google form to me, and they're going to say, I don't think my partner read my paper. I didn't really get any feedback. And so in that way, I'm also putting significance on collaboration. I want them to be able to work with other people, because I don't care what kind of field you're in, you're working with others. And if you don't work well with others, you're not going to be successful. And I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't show you that right now, right in your freshman year comp. So a lot of what I think about when I think about syllabus is it's tentative. And I put it in big letters. It's tentative. And so if this disclaimer doesn't feel that it did what you thought it should do, rewrite it for me. Tell me what it should have said. And you can have whatever grade you want. I don't care about that. I care about, and this is the labor-based grading, I care about the learning. And if the learning shows you how to communicate better, that's the goal. You learned anyways. I like to say, they're going to learn whether they like it or not. And they do. I feel like they do.
I like that self-correction from the peer editor pairing, right? Where the person says, well, they gave me a good job, mate, and they didn't say anything about my paper. And then there's some kind of consequence for that, maybe a missed assignment, right, on a labor-based grading. So yeah, I like building that in. I know with my syllabus, I've just got, one of the things I've got that hasn't been mentioned was you're responsible for what's in your paper, because ChatGPT is biased, right? It's got bias in it, and it also just spews nonsense. So you still are responsible for what you sign your name to on your paper. All right, so let's open this up to the audience. Kendra, I don't know how you want to. I think this one's going good.
I think this one's good too. Anyone have questions? I took all the questions that was asked through the form stack,
Just
and I
in
gave them
case.
all to Van. So that's why he was kind of hitting on some of them. Okay, yay. Okay.
Can I take this for a sec? I've got a. Well, I'm not sure about brain development as such. I don't deal with brains the way like Margaret does, right? But I know that in writing studies, right, if students are, and this is a problem with AI in general in society, right? Like we use maps, right, for GPS or Apple, and then do you know how to read a map? Right? So, but in writing studies, it's the idea that writing is a way of learning, right? And that as you write, you find out what you thought. Now that's a kind of discovery process. We want our students to experience in the writing process, right? But if they're just going and getting a dump from, copying a copy from some bot, they're not doing that. So I would imagine if they're just turning in a copy, their brain is not developing. But if they're writing and finding discoveries and connections in their own brain, well, I don't know where else they would come from, then there's something good happening there. Yeah, Margaret.
I'll back you up, man. So I mean, I think that's it, right? When we are actively dealing with material, whether it's something we've read, something, and I'll nod to my favorite Montessori expert, something we are physically interacting with, when we are applying the material to ourselves. So the assignments that y'all were talking about, we're saying, well, what do you think when you're that soldier? When I often tell my students, I want you to raise your hand and say, I have an experience like that, because you're relating it to yourself. When we can connect it to experiences we've had, things we are doing, then our brains are changing. I forget which one of you said we learn through experience. We're experience making machines, we're pattern making machines. So we can look at those experiences, we can interact with those things, then our brains are changing. And so to your point, Laura, right, if we are, and what you said, man, if we are not actively engaging, that learning is not happening. So, I mean, I really appreciate Kayla's approach of saying, okay, let's figure out how to actively engage with the material. I don't know that there is a right or a wrong way to actively engage. It's finding a way of making it your own, finding a topic that you're interested in, and being invested in the material in some way to make it your own. I know that can be a stretch. I mean, I get on students say, why do I care about the action potential of the neuron, right? And that's part of our challenge, is finding a way to make sure that it is relevant, that they care, that they had to help them find a way. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think that's we do have to be concerned about that, because that's where the change is happening, with that active engagement. And I think we're all scared, myself included, because it's going to require a change in the way we are thinking about how we are presenting the material.
I think that one of the things that excites me about Kayla's approach is, I don't want to embarrass her, is that the tool itself can become a tool of engagement, right? A student can get interested and then they follow up, and it's quicker. They're getting hits faster with this, and then it's like maybe it starts curiosity, which I know, like in the honors program, curiosity is the thing itself, right? I mean, once you like the curiosity, then it's all right, go, right? But if there's not the curiosity there, and maybe this is, can be used in some instances as an engagement tool. Right? Any other questions?
We have a student here that has a question.
Hello, my name's Roman, currently taking a degree in arts. So this conversation kind of interests me, since I know the ChatGPT is like one thing for the field of like writers, different types of writers like journalists, educators, and all that. I was wondering if y'all, of course, if it is applicable, if y'all could give some thoughts about AI art generation. As an artist myself, I find myself very concerned about the future and if it might harm any career paths that might affect me directly with the introduction of that type of software.
This one's hard. I actually have a student last semester who created a comic book. Instead of a literacy narrative essay, she made a comic book. And it was incredible. It was beautiful. And she had been already, her research project for the semester was NFTs. And her worry was art. And how do we retain originality in art when you have these AIs that are coming full force, basically stealing art and reusing it, remixing it, whatever you want to call it. And this has been one of the hardest conversations that I've had with her, because I don't have an answer to it. When we are talking about academics, we're talking about things that I do feel very expert in, but in art, I can draw a stick figure and that's it. And so I don't feel an emotional pull toward that. I don't feel a connection, but I see that an artist would. I see that you birthed something that came from you and it's original and that you don't want to have it stolen from you. At the same time, when you have so many companies creating the AIs to essentially steal your artwork, well, then it becomes how do and I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover. So I'm not gonna fight against it. I'm gonna figure out a way to love it. And for artists to love that, it's going to look like a new form of art. You're gonna have to really get creative to work around things that are not going to be able to be copied by a machine. And that might be an incredible work of art. That might be a whole new frontier. But as far as can I continue to make art the way that I'm making art now, I don't think that is possible. That's like me saying, can I continue to instruct the way I was instructing 10 years ago? No, I'm not gonna be able to do that. But I hope that something comes of it that is positive.
To touch on that, because I'm a graphic designer as well, and that's one of my concerns is being able to create, right, with my own mindset, but having to compete with the AI, right? And I think what's happening is in all areas of where we kind of construct in our society, it's kind of become like the issue is access and the overflow of information that we want to get. So in the sense of media, we want information to be given to us right then and there and delivered. That's the reason why our infatuation with social media, because we can get it at the snap of our finger. So when you look at that, and you look at even our mobile devices to say, all right, our devices can tell us what new information has dropped and it delivered to us right there on the device. You can ask Siri anything you want in the world, right? And she'll give it to you, just like with Alexa. And you can have a whole conversation with both of them. So I think as a concern for artists like myself, you know, even with journalism, it's either we gotta figure out a way how to accept it and kind of move with it, or like you said, be very, very creative to where it can't be copied or emulated.
Go ahead, Margaret.
And
Wait,
I was just
hold on one second. Excuse me. I think your lapel mic is not working, so take one of the microphones over there and talk, because they can't pick you up on the recorder. Ginger has one, and then I think I have the other one. I think his battery might have
Okay,
died.
can I talk or do you? Okay. No, I just want to validate what you said, because even as an English instructor, I was worried about that as well. What is going away and what's happening? And one thing that really helped me, is the fact that creativity, and you're already a creative being, is what's going to help us. And one of the things that I mentioned before, robot proof, specifically address is that things are going to look different, and that's why I think I've had such a hard existential crisis, because I do agree with Kayla that things do look different. And who decides to pivot, who decides to create the new whatever it is, those are going to be the people at the forefront. So the fact that you're here talking about this is kudos to all of our creatives out there, because as an educator, I thought, okay, my career's going to be over, robots are going to replace me. And then as I read the book and I started to understand more, actually there's going to be an uptick in faculty and instructors to provide the human experience that the AIs do not. So I was like, yes, winning. My profession is not going away. So we don't have an answer for you, but I just want to validate your concern.
Margaret wanted to follow up.
I wanted to speak to that, Roman. I think, too, I can remember many years ago, my grandmother, who was a musician, criticizing certain musicians because they were technically perfect and there was no emotion behind it. And my son, who's a cellist, I can hear it when he plays a piece that he's passionate about. And when you read poems that come from the person's heart, gut, soul, wherever you want to say it's coming from, that's
learn and live with it or find ways to kind of outsmart it in so many ways. But that's going to be a challenge because everything is going to be evolving. Like now, we got autonomous cars that drive themselves now, and other things that within the apps, like with Roman, we have apps that can create visual effects of us and throw them into environments that we just type in. So like I said, it's going to be a challenge as far as us as individuals and humans as a community to figure out how to make that either adapt to it or make it work for us.
Okay, I think I have something. Just, it's from TikTok, so, take it with a grain of salt. He was telling a story about how he went into a McDonald's very late at night, and they have now selfless checkouts, right? And you can just click. You don't have to have any human interaction at all. And he said there was this much older woman who was there cleaning up, and she was so sweet. She was trying to walk him through it, right? She's struggling, right? But she was very funny. She was very charismatic. And he said, she just made me feel so comfortable. And he goes, I didn't even notice that it took her about 3 times as long as it would have taken me by myself to put that order in. I felt her trying, and I wouldn't have given the machine anything, any input, if she would have just been there at a cash register. And I think that's what we're talking about, is we are not losing our humanity. Our humanity is why we exist together. And I think that when we embrace things together, it makes that fear subside. We can find ways around. We can find more progressive, more innovative, because we've always done that. I feel like that's just the human race as, a species. But a lot of it is also, and I love what Ginger said, because we're definitely not losing our jobs. If anything, I'm going to be in high demand very soon, because those interpersonal skills, that machine can't teach you that. I can teach you that. I can teach you how to make people feel comfortable. I can make you feel like you're uncomfortable in yourself. And that's a huge thing. I think there is nothing that could ever replace that. And I'll be damned if a machine does, right? Because at that point, well, we deserve to be extinct, because how is that even possible? I really do think that we're going to be fine. I think that we have to continue to grow, and we have to do so in discomfort. That's where growth takes place. And so I wouldn't worry constantly. I would worry, a good amount.
Okay, so I am a communications director at UP, and I played with ChatGPT for 5 hours one day until it told me I couldn't ask any more questions. And I put in everything from health questions to things that would relate to my field, because I, like you, worried a little bit about my job, but also I have 2 kids in college, so what about the fields that they're studying? Will they even be available when they actually finish graduating? The one thing I will say is I typed in make me a press release, and I kind of gave it some points to make the press release, and it would let me take the first one, and then it would let me regenerate one if I wanted a second version, and then it would let me regenerate again if I wanted a third version. And so the one thing I saw, though, is that, and I don't know if this will affect what y'all do as teachers, I could take a piece from this one, a piece from this one, a piece from this one, and I could make a paper, or I could make because I did speeches, I did talking points, I did press releases. And so I could have crafted a new press release, but not from one, but by taking 3, regenerated, efforts from it. And then same with talking points. We have multiple events coming up, so I said, okay, I'm gonna put in talking points from one of our events, and it gave me very generic talking points, welcome your crowd, talk about student success, those kind of things. So if you wanted to adapt it to your specific school, or if you wanted to adapt it to your school's mission statement or whatever, you still had to put those elements in. Successful programs that worked. For your school, you still had to add those human elements, I guess. But very well could have possibly even typed those in to see if it would have crafted around that. And so I guess what I'm wondering is, have y'all even experienced with pulling pieces together from multiple versions of it to see if it would be detectable then as that it came from a ChatGPT? Plus, I'll add too that Jasper AI does social media because, Copy AI, writer.com, but we have social media for professional development and graphic design because we're all interested in how it's going to affect our students, our job, so forth.
So I actually, in my workshop, I'm going to teach how to do this. I like to create tables in ChatGPT so that I have multiple to pull from. So this is what it will sound like creative. This is friendly. This is academic. And they're all still very bland. But what I really love to see is, well, if it can do all of these different tables, can the students then pick out what is changing as we go? And so a lot of the time when we talk about, well, why is storytelling different than academic writing? They will, when they have a genre analysis and they have samples, they'll pull out, well, one uses a different point of view. One has adjectives, they end in LYs, they're descriptive words. And so when you have those types of pieces, we would say, I think, that is patchwork writing. We do not encourage patchwork writing because there is no thinking behind patchworking. It's quite literally you're taking pieces and Frankensteining a paper. I do not prefer that. I would much rather a student come to me and I foster this environment very deeply, and I have a very strong, determined self where I don't want them to have to cheat. I will cut down that assignment to one paragraph if it means that they don't have to Frankenstein it, because I would rather one paragraph than 8 paragraphs that have been pulled from other places. Now, another option, because I really like to give choice, is I'll wipe out some of those pieces and I'll make them blanks. And I'll say, okay, now you go make it your own. And by the time they realize what they've done, it's theirs. They've changed it to the point where I can't even tell that it came from something that was generated from something else. But I personally would not like for them to piece together unless we were doing something like a template. And I do have them do template assignments where I'm like, okay, so for the next class, I want you to create their template and what you find very valuable that they need to know immediately. And then we do a reflection, and it's kind of that cycle, and they probably get tired of it, but I don't care because they're gonna learn whether they like it or not. And that is where I think that would come in. Everything has its place, with me, but if y'all have.
We have 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Any more questions? Okay, coming.
Apparently, I'm not as loud as Laura Dupree. I'm on the workforce, the task force at the Cypher campus for ChatGPT. Our dean has named it the AI task force, tongue in cheek. But we've had some conversations, and we came up with 2 areas that we think really need to be addressed. The first is culture. We've heard so many of our colleagues say we don't want to police. I didn't come into this because I wanted to check up on people and make sure that they're doing what they say that they're doing. And there are already so many ways to produce a paper that you didn't write already. And so this is just one more, right? It's just one more. And then we had the same concerns. What about critical thinking skills? What about the ability to research well? What about curiosity and inquisitiveness? And so we divided up into 2 parts, but it's Kayla, right? To your point, I do think the answer is to have more one-on-one. The problem, and friends, I'm not putting down any other curriculum-based content, but the problem with the English instructors is there's only so much of us to go around, and we already have very high caps to our classes, and the work that goes into just one paper is astronomical. It makes me tired. I think that's what the problem is. We're all tired. And I'm hoping that we can pool our resources together to come up with content that can be shared for professional development that buoys us up, but also makes our work easier and tells the system that we need teaching instructors, teaching assistants, and half our classes. I really, that's what I'm here to say. I want 15 students in a class.
I want 15 students too. So I love this so much. I'm very solution focused. I don't know if you noticed, but I like adaptability. Just really quickly, this has nothing to do really with AI. When I was in the pandemic with the students, we really built the curriculum together. I really did. I leaned on them a lot. It was really hard for all of us, and I wanted them to know that I was listening to them. One of the most amazing things that they did was they would basically take one of the A papers, whatever that genre was, and they would record themselves walking through what that paper did. And then we would do the opposite, and we would talk about a B or C or D paper and what that paper did. And they would check each other against those videos. So we had a massive bank. It was a folder, it was a Google folder, but of each class going through, and there were so many examples that it was like me times 50, because they were going through and they were doing those reviews still. They were still doing the Google Forms. And so it's, in my mentality, how do I make more of me? Well, I teach them. I give them the tools that I use. I give them the brain processes that I use. I teach them how to use those brain processes. I have, I had what I called co-captains, which would be your TAs, right? And my co-captains were the top of my classes, and they were dual credit students, so they were very motivated by like, I'll give you whatever recommendations you want, but you work for free and for food. So they would also go through and they would check. It was so incredible. Just the things that we can do together, the things that we can do with technology now, like those pre-recorded videos, amazing. And I've seen some math instructors who do a phenomenal job with that exact process, where they're walking through and they say, stop the video, you try, and then start the video, and I'll walk you through it. And I'm like, my gosh, this is just magnificent. So I also think that we haven't talked about it, but cross-curricular, I would love to go and see what other departments are doing. I love thinking about all of the different ways that we can help each other become stronger. And I think that is a huge component to overcoming this huge fear of AI and what it might do in the future.
Can you speak quickly to how you either do now or foresee the utilization of AI in grading and evaluation, right? Especially in our discipline, she's referencing burnout and the difficulty in really high class caps and how many papers we have, and everybody else has heard the English professors whine. So let me do that too. But how do you foresee best being able to use this technology in reducing that load?
Okay, so the accountability is really important. The student needs to know that we are either reading it or somebody's reading it and somebody's making them accountable. A big thing that I have thought about with AI is we're not going to have them trust AI to grade whatever it is that they're doing. I really like them making Flipgrids, or I think it's called Flip now, where they're recording themselves walking through how they would assess themselves and why. And then I send their project to somebody else. I don't put their name on it or anything, and I don't put the videos up either. I send them the video, and they're walking through, well, this is how I would apply this rubric, and this is what I would give it. They give it something, the other person gives it something. They usually give themselves like a B. They're really hard on themselves, y'all. I know you think that they're gonna give themselves A's, but they don't. They usually give B's and C's. They're hard on themselves, and their peer is actually pretty easy on them. And so I take the average, and I'm like, there you go, there's the average. And again, it's Google Forms. You're using that Excel spreadsheet. There is an AI that will make all those formulas for you. I'm just letting you know. And you roll through much faster, but a lot of it is collaborate. You got to lean on each other. If you're thinking I have to do it all, you're going to burn out. You got to ask for help. And I know that especially in my generation and generations above me, asking for help was a big no-no. It was figure it out by yourself. Y'all, we will, I'm cease and desist if we continue to do that. We're here and we need to be here together. So I think that's a huge part of it.
All right, I think the microphone is in one last hand here. We're going to take this last comment before we close it out. Lori Hughes, take us away.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
I just want to thank y'all for doing this, for being up there, being completely transparent. That some of this we don't know yet, and we're figuring it out. But we're not scared of it in the sense that we're. But I mean, what we're doing is what we need to be doing, right? So I think going back to what you were saying earlier. There's gonna be a lot more focus on the metacognitive strategies about thinking about what I'm writing, processing the whole process of writing, and having the students really be able to explain the choices that they make. And so one of the things I wrote down as y'all were talking as an assignment that I'm thinking about doing with my students is having them narrate in a Yuja video what they did in their paper and what they got from it, what they used to write it. And I'm going to encourage them to seek out ChatGPT just so they can see, because I think you have to have those honest conversations with them in class. You have to open it up and learn with them, like you said. But I think it would be so interesting. It's like that going back to the, writing a paper in class, but digitally. Just a thought.
There's a C's workshop I can send you, and she does that exact thing that you just said.
Oh, I'd like to see it.
So
Thank you.
Smarter, not harder.
Thank y'all very much. Would you please give our panelists a hand? They did a fantastic. Van, you did a great job moderating. Thank you all for being here and being on the lookout for our next Fireside Chat.